There's one more thing I want to show you around sharing dependencies. So I'm back inside of my cart webpack config file, looking at this shared option right here. Our Faker module can be loaded up several different times inside the browser without any problem whatsoever. In other words, we can load Faker, and it's still going to work even if we load it into the browser multiple times. There are other modules, however, and the most important of which is React, where we cannot load them up multiple times inside the browser. If you try to load up multiple copies of React, you're going to eventually get an error message from React that says, hey, you've got multiple copies of React running. Don't do that. So there might be some scenarios where we want to have different versions of a library, which would imply that we want to load up different copies, but we might want to actually prevent that behavior, because if we do load up different copies, we would end up with some kind of error. So let's simulate that and just see what happens, and how we can make sure that we only restrict and get just one single version, or at least get some kind of notice saying, hey, you probably have something wrong going on here. So to get started, I'm going to find shared right here, and we're going to define these shared options using a slightly different syntax. Rather than putting an array of strings, I'm going to put an object with a key of Faker, and then we're going to put in here Singleton true. Singleton true means that we only want to load up one single copy of Faker no matter what. Only one copy. So I'm going to save this. I'll then go over to products webpack config, and I'm going to make the exact same change. Once again, we're going to restart our webpack processes. So here's cart, I'll do an npm start. Here's products, I'll do an npm run start. And now if I go back over to my browser and refresh, once again, we're going to see that we are only loading one single copy. So now let's try to get Webpack to try to load multiple copies and see it kind of conflict with that singleton rule. Remember, Webpack will attempt to load up multiple copies of a module if we try to specify multiple different incompatible versions. So let's go back to cart. We're going to reinstall version 4.1.0 of Faker, and we're going to see how the versioning stuff plays out with the singleton rule, and just see what Webpack does. So back at my terminal, I'll find my cart terminal window. We'll do an npm install Faker at 4.1.0 again. So now we have incompatible versions, and the module federation plugin is going to want to load two separate copies of Faker. But like I said, we also put in that singleton rule, which says don't try to load up single copies. So let's just see what occurs. Okay, so I'm going to refresh. We'll see that we still get one copy right here, but if you open up your console, you'll see a big warning message right here. So the warning message says that we are trying to get version 5.1.0, or we have version 5.1.0, but we want version 4.1.0. So this is the sign from Webpack that it was not able to load up the dependencies as you expected. You said only get one copy, but also get a copy of version 5 and a copy of version 4. Conflicting rules. And that gets manifested with a warning message like this. So whenever you see a warning message like this, it means that you have different sub-projects that are trying to make use of different versions, but you also said only load one copy. So this message would be assigned to you that you would have to go do some debugging and figure out, okay, do we really only want to have one version or one copy? If you really only want one copy, can you increment one version, or can you decrement the other version to make these things compatible? So again, this is the sign to you that you need to do a little bit more digging and figure out how to make these two sub-projects compatible. Adding on that singleton flag doesn't change anything about running these projects in isolation. Everything still works as expected. It's only once we start to load up these different sub-applications together that we start to see this warning message. Okay, so I just wanted to show you that error message, just so you understand what happens when we try to load up one copy, but also multiple copies. So now we're going to undo that change we just made. So I'm going to revert this back to being just Faker inside of products, revert it back to being just Faker inside of cart, and then once again, restart my Webpack processes. There's cart, and here's products. They are using different versions right now, so if I go and refresh, I will no longer see a warning, but I will be loading up two copies of Faker once again. Okay, so again, just wanted to give you that information. Let's take a pause right here, and we're going to move on to one last really big topic around this project.